Good afternoon, traders. Good afternoon. Welcome. VTP Stage 2 online. Technical Tuesday coaching call 184 for the 10th of March 2026. I hope you're all well. I hope you've had a good start to the week. I hope wherever you're listening to this that you're safe and sound, regardless of what is going on in the world. It was another eventful weekend, another eventful start to the week. So let's talk more about that in a moment when we dig into the into what the markets are showing us. As always, you're very welcome here. Just remember that you are responsible for your own trading decisions. And as always, if you want more help and support, you can join the VTP tag to give yourself some extra structure, discipline, and sustainability. All right, so Sterling, bang, weekly chart. Weekly chart, we had been, for the last few months, we had been kind of sterling weakening, dollar strengthening. Um, And then we hit the 50 here. We've hit the 50, haven't we? And we've just had a little bit of a bounce. We're in a little bit of I'd say we're in a bit of no man's land. The only thing is, yes, I would see this on the daily chart. I would see this as a bit of a double bottom there. Can you see that? Not only is it a double bottom, but the sort of second leg of it is a bullish engulfing, bullish key reversal candle, bullish rejection candle, which closed above the eight there as well. I'd like to see is if we can get above the 200. Remember, look at the daily 200. Okay, daily 200 is as has provided reaction in the past. What I'd like to see is get us above. If we get above and close there, well then I think we go to the 50 at least. Okay, and that's what I'll be looking. And that would be a case. That would be very much a case of dollar weakness more so than any real particular sterling strength. I would suggest, but that's what we're looking at there. Pound against Japanese yen on the weekly chart. Of saying how you can see how that has been working. I then talked about this kind of broadening formation that was building, and we kind of dropped, but we've just not been able to sort of get up beneath that weekly 20, have we? The weekly 20 has acted as support, and we're pushing up now. Now, of course, this could be a ski jump basically before we move down to the 50 there. I could watch that. But part of it is sterling's pretty hopeless, but Japanese yen is getting will get hammered by higher prices, okay, or rather higher price for oil. And I think the Japanese Ministry of um, God, the central Bank of Japan, sorry, came out and started saying that they were starting to keep an eye on how markets were unfolding for them. Okay, so they're clearly worried. They're clearly worried about that. So this might be an interesting one to watch, sort of see how Japanese yen imparts. Certainly, if I look on that on the daily chart, I mean, it looks much nicer on the weekly chart, didn't it? It's grinding its way there, but yeah, and this week has been that's just yen weakness. That's why we're seeing yen operate the way it is. As I said, Swiss franc has been in that scruffy downtrend. Okay, sterling weakness, Swiss franc strength. Okay, I've seen more of it, but interestingly, we kind of have flushed recent lows. And if I go down to the daily chart, that was, that was the kind of last Monday start. What people would expect is Swiss franc to really strengthen, but actually look at that, it isn't. And now you're looking at this. I would call this kind of like almost like a reverse ski jump, more so than a double bottom. I'd call that like the ends. All right, that is it's not a key reversal candle, but it's an engulfing candle. I would have liked the to be a bit of a stronger close above the previous day's high in the 20 period moving average. That's what I've liked. I would have liked to have seen that, but I think that's yeah, that's an indication of, as I said, the SMB playing at being silly buggers in the market more so than any love for sterling. Pound Aussie, what was a downtrend has just accelerated. Just look at the way that is just sterling weakness daily chart. That is, you know, that's what you want to be seeing, right? For VTP stage 2, that's the STAM in action. All right, okay, it's working its lower, working its lower. Sterling weakening, Aussie dollar strengthening. That's what you want, and a trend to run with it. Okay, and every opportunity when it comes back to is that a chance to attack that trend. Okay, in line with strength v weakness there. Okay, but we've still been low, but we're kind of at a block there, aren't we? At about 189, just sat under 190, I would say. Let's just draw that in there. If you let me just draw that in on here. Because if you look at this, we did talk about it. We were here you're right, two 2000, big round number. Look at how it acts, bang. Look how it exports. But once it breaks, and you're getting wicks to the side, bang. That's your trade. All right, that's trade. And the way that has worked has been it's been nice, beautiful, hasn't it? Okay, that's the pip run down. Okay, 1100, 100 pip run. That's stage two in a bucket. All right, buying strength, selling weakness. Pound against New Zealand dollar has been messy, but once again, we saw kind of sterling weaken. Then we start to get messy. Last week we did push up, but I think that's kind of key dollar weakness on there as well. Certainly, okay, start of this month, looking at the price action, I look at this as, that has been in a really nice stage four. It is a double bottom there, okay? Yeah, not necessarily the kind of prettiest of price action, you might say. I'd probably be saying, but above 226, holding that, if we can continue that, if we get more PO20, all right, that would give me an indication that basically we shift up to where the 50 and the 200 are. Okay, that's what I'll be watching for. Right, that would be, as I said, some Kiwi dollar weakness in place. Pound CAD. All right. Interestingly, pound has been weakening against Canadian dollar, and then last week and this week we've had all sorts of shenanigans going on, and that's all to do with the with oil. Okay, so if I go down to the 4 hours, we're in that downtrend. We gapped down, and then we rallied up, which is kind of is curious to me. Right, that is curious to me. We gapped up, fill the gap, come up to the 50, and now we're going to see. Well, okay, is this basically holding? That is kind of a if there is not the what's the word? If the war is not going to be as long as people had thought or worried, that's kind of quite a telling because sterling is on the bones of its arse, and yet it still managed to strengthen a little bit there against the Canadian dollar. That maybe that is just a relief rally. All right, just let's keep an eye on that. And finally, finishing up, euro against sterling. I mean, if you look at that for 2026, it's been all over the place, hasn't it, really? We talked about the end of this downtrend, at the start of February, where we this beautiful, big, polished, golfy reverse candle, and we've just worked our way up. But then basically we've worked our way back down, haven't we? And if I go at the 4 hour chart, I was talking about this, we kind of the wall we had put shove up a really nice double top, and then we've just worked our way down. And that's kind of even despite all of the domestic sterling nonsense. Look at how euro has been weakening against even the sterling. That's telling you now. What I look at here is that this morning what we've done is we've based and we've printed that bullish key reversal, and we've printed a bullish key reversal. So let's keep. You might want to keep an eye on that. Okay. Certainly, yeah. This morning, a kind of it flushed in the kind of Frankfurt, London, its way up. But I'll be intrigued to see, is that gonna basically a bit of a pump just on people probably people taking profit over a week of a nice trend. All right, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Let's draw a close to it there. I hope you found that useful. I hope that helps you. I hope it gives you some insight into what's going on this week. Listen, just because Trump said it's over or, it's almost over, keep your wits about you. All right. Make sure you're on top of the news flow. Make sure you're on top of the order flow. Make sure that you're putting in good risk management. Okay. Have yourself a fantastic trading week, and I look forward to speaking to you soon, everybody. Cheers.